welcome back to the channel. My name is Dr. D. Today we are going to talk about a number of incidents that happened in the last week or so, what you can learn from them, and as a small business owner, how access to this type of intelligence and advice can set you above the competition and protect your bottom line and protect your operations against business disruption. So sit back, grab yourself your favorite beverage. Let's get at her. All right, welcome back to the podcast and YouTube channel. Listen, business disruptions occur. According to the Small Business Administration in the United States of America, 91% of all small businesses will face some form of disruption every quarter. So that's almost a certainty that at some time in a series of quarter, your small business will get hit with a disruption. Now, it may just be a short outage in a network. It may be a minor disruption in one of your tier 2 or tier 3 supply chain partners, or it may be a glitch within your point of sale software. Any one of those are a disruption, but it also could move all the way up to a ransomware attack. It could move up, for example, if you're a solo entrepreneur and you run everything off of an iCloud and your Apple ID, somebody gets your Apple ID, you no longer have access to it, and now your entire structure of your business disappears because it's tied to the single point of failure. All of these happen every day and at scale to small and medium businesses around North America and across Western nations. And because of that, you are in a position where you're vulnerable. And accepting that you're vulnerable is not something entrepreneurs take lightly, and it's not something that entrepreneurs accept. They don't want to think they're vulnerable. They think they're pushing the envelope, bringing a great product and service, which they are, but they're doing so in an environment that is vulnerable. They're doing so in an environment that is full of nefarious actors. Yet you want to simply deliver a dry cleaning service. And as a dry cleaner, you don't think you're a target for a cyber attack, but you're a prime candidate for a small actor to take out and ransomware, because most dry cleaners don't think of cybersecurity as one of their top level things that they have to do. Or you're in some type of logistics or 3PL business and you don't understand that your second and third order suppliers that bring all of that packaging and all of the material together to enable your system to operate are your single point of failure and is your weakness. And we know that in today's world, not only is unemployment going up across individual, we know that a lot of small and medium businesses right now are struggling. Similar data exists to people who they say are $400 away, one major event, or one missed paycheck away from not being able to make ends meet. There's a lot of small and medium businesses in North America and in Europe that are sitting in the same place, that they have significant difficulty meeting their obligations for their employees and their contractors if they have even one quarter of 20 or 30% decline in revenue. And so because of that, people are living in a precarious position. The idea of having access to risk level intelligence, to intelligence as to what has gone on, is not quite priceless, but pretty close. So if you think about the fact that I can't predict the future and you can't predict the future, but what we do about prediction, and this is the basic of the scientific method, and this is the basic of AI, or at least of basic forms of AI, is that they look at all of the data of what has happened in the past to predict what is likely to happen in the future. That's what we do in scientific research, is we looked at the last 100 times this event occurred in the past, and we see what happened, which gives us a predictable recommendation as to what will occur. Nobody can be certain. So if we understand that, then we look back at all of the series of disruptions and significant events that have happened to small and medium businesses like us over the past period of time. We analyze what happened to them. We analyze what they did. What was the outcome? What was the pain that they suffered? And then what could they have done in advance of this event occurring that mitigated or lessened the harm? Because remember, in business operations and in risk management, you can't prevent anything from occurring. The only way to prevent a cyber attack, the only way to prevent a supply chain disruption is to not be online or not have a supply chain. That's it. So the word prevent should never exist in risk management. What you can do is mitigate it. I can lessen the probability that something will occur by investing in risk management. I can lessen the severity of that event when it does occur by investing in risk management. So what I'm doing is I'm reducing the potential of future pain. And when future pain happens, because it will happen to everybody, I'm reducing the impact of that pain. And if you think about the fact, if you're privileged enough to be a small business owner that has employees, your employees are counting on you for the paycheck so that they can maintain their family obligations. Your downtime, that 20 or 30% reduction in revenue in one quarter, if that causes you to impact the number of employees, that is an additional, arguably exponential effect of your lack of preparation. And so what we try to achieve in the risk management, and what we're going to demonstrate today, is if we look at a number of incidents and analyze it through that lens, we'll be able to best understand what you as a small business owner can do. And so when we think about it, let's just go over the last week or so in small business operations. We had a telecom outage, 20 minutes for failed emergency calls. This was through a company called Outage. And what happened was their technical networks went down for 20 minutes, and it was the service that was used for 911 and a number of emergency calls. So you could imagine the difficulty and the challenge it would pose to an organization that relied on IT, and it goes down. So if you're off for 20 minutes, as a small business owner who sells services online, I probably am not going to take an economic hit for that. But if I operate 911 services and all of a sudden nobody in my region can get anybody when they dial 911, somebody will likely die because of that. That's the potential severity. And if you see all of the different problems that exist, now that was a minor 20-minute outage. Lessons like that should be viewed as a lesson. They tell you that when you look at a vulnerability and when something like that occurs, the cell phone goes down. So just imagine right now in your business how you operate and ask yourself this question. What does my world look like when I lose connectivity to the internet? How successful are my business operations if I lose connectivity to the internet? Then you look at if you have a single point of failure. And the problem for a number of these businesses, and the lesson learned is, a number of these businesses that were supported by this service provider didn't have a redundancy. In other words, they didn't have another cell network that they could immediately switch operations to, or another internet service provider that they could immediately switch operations to. So because somebody else crashed the internet network that you were using, you were offline, and those that didn't have redundancy stayed offline. So 20 minutes for the most of us is nothing more than an inconvenience, but it's a clear lesson. There's a lot of businesses that lost probably nominal to zero level of revenue for a 20-minute outage, but it just informed you, what if that 20-minute outage was a 2-day outage? How are you going to hook up and set up your alternate service provider when you don't have internet to access? How are you intending to do that? And so the lesson from that is to have a redundancy. Now, if you can't afford 2 cell networks or 2 internet service providers at the same time, then your free solution is, how do I set this up on short notice? How do I move my operations from, I'm in Canada, so how do I move my operations from Rogers to Bell? If Rogers goes down and stays down, how do I get up and running on Bell if I don't have a Bell account? Now remember, you're going to be competing with absolutely everybody else who's trying to do it at the last minute. But think about that. If you don't afford the 2 on the go, you're good. You just need to know how I'm going to do that. For example, here at Preparedness Labs Incorporated, we have 2 ongoing internet service providers. both Bell and Rogers. We also have a tertiary backup of Starlink. So if all three of those go down, if Bell, Rogers, I don't use Telus, so if Bell and Rogers and Starlink go down, the odds are my customers are probably down too. So the loss is mitigated. And the probability of all three being down at one time is pretty close to nil. It's not zero, but it's pretty close to nil. So because of that, the lesson that I learned from seeing the pain that 20-minute outage caused people is, hey, I'm vulnerable here and maybe I need to make a change. And the attack on the Stryker Medical Company that's been well over the news, and everybody, you're well aware of it, but the example from that attack is a company that had automated all of its systems. And I remind all of you who are AI warriors, and we use AI throughout our programming and activities here at Preparedness Labs Incorporated, you are setting yourself up for a potential issue if you don't have a manual backup. And I know it's crazy in the 21st century to tell you to have a manual backup, but the fact that a nefarious actor was able to take a major medical company down to its knees to where it did not have access to any of its IT systems, and it had to resort to providing service to its clients manually, how would you do that? That's the takeaway. If you didn't get affected by Stryker, then great, you dodged one. Well done. But it should be an incredible lesson for you as we said before, losing access to the internet. But what if somebody takes down your entire system and you have no access to any of your records whatsoever? How do you know who your customers are? How do you know how to contact your customers? And how do you plan on continuing to provide service to your customers for a short period of time until you get that system up and running? Now, Stryker will come back completely. It may cost a ridiculous amounts of money, but you have to have a backup manual system. And for me, it's very simple. I have my clients, and every week, and I know people say this, I have a air-gapped backup. So it's a portable hard drive that sits in a location, not my office. So if my office building burns down and everything in it is destroyed, in a separate location, just sits a hard drive, and I update it every week. Now, I hope every week. Some days it's 10 days, but basically it sits off there. I can go get myself a brand new laptop, and then I can hook that up and I can restart the business and get it back up online. Now, I'm going to be missing a week's worth of data, but I have the data or contact. And as an absolute backup, I'm an old school nerd. I have a printed list of customers, their email, and their phone number. So at least what I'm able to do is when I realize that this is bigger than a couple of hours, I can make a phone call to at least the key supporters of the industry, the key supporters of the company, reach out to them and say, hey, we're down. I don't know how down we're long for. What is your existing order? Have we fulfilled that? And I'm here at this number. You can call me 24/7, and we're going to work through this together. So you show initiative. You lessen the likelihood that you'll immediately lose the client, and you try to struggle through. Those two, the Stryker and the Optus downtime, demonstrate our appropriate reliance on IT and AI because it's the 21st century, but they show that vulnerability that you as a small business owner can say, how can I back that up? Now, I print out my Excel spreadsheets. I know it's nerdy. I have a basic printer that's probably 10 years old, but every week I update my financials for my company on one spreadsheet, right? I print it out every week. So I at least know where I am from a financial perspective if for whatever reasons I lose access to that record. Basic, simple things. And no, it's not a great deal of paperwork. I don't have filing cabinets. I have maybe 3 envelopes for the entire business. But at least I have access to that information. And so when we want to look at another one, we look at a municipal ransomware that happened where cybersecurity and a reputational damage disabled city services. Now, this happened in a California city shut down as most IT systems were attacked by a nefarious actor. And so if you think about municipal services, a lot of investment and reliability is not necessarily placed in defensive IT infrastructure and defensive risk management solutions at a municipality. Because really, municipalities deliver water, sewer, they take your garbage out, they give your dog licenses, like a lot of the day-to-day things that keep things going. When that disappears, because the city's unable to administer, or for example, where I live in the city of Ottawa, all of our property tax information and all of the access to our property tax records are all online. If that is no longer publicly available, think of all of the modern online advancements that have been made by municipal services, and it's no longer available. How does that impact your business? Now, it depends on the level of government you deal with. It depends whether government itself is an important client to you, but it gives a very clear indication of these services that you rely upon from a basic supporter like a municipality that we nominally would just consider to be normal, that this is continuously here and it's never going to go away. And then it does go away. It's asking that question, what does my world look like if the municipality stopped doing its work? If the municipality was no longer able to deliver the services that I count on, that my employees count on, what does that look like? And is there a logical backup? Because there's not always going to be an easy, simple, redundant system. But it asks the question, how do I do that? So if my employees, for example, all work remote, and this was a great example from a different event that happened, a couple of months ago, but a company had gone remote because they saw the benefits of it, the wonderful ability for people to work from home. They had a great team who understood the wonderful situation they were in, so they gave great service back to the company for the privilege of working at home. And then municipal services shut down in one of the areas, and a couple of the employees had no access to water, had no access to power, and had no access to garbage collection. They couldn't work from home. Now, the company didn't have any alternate solutions. They didn't have an office anymore because everybody was remote. But all of a sudden, the power goes out where your employees are for a period of time, 2, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. That employee still needs to work. They still need to produce deliverables. They still need to execute customer services role. The lack of power at their home does not equate to their inability to do the work. This one company, though, what they had done is found an alternate WeWork or local work situation in every place where their company was. And they had paid the employee to work there 1 day a month. So what they did is the employee worked from home 29 days a month. I know we don't work 30, but you understand what I'm saying. So 20 working days. So 19 days a month, the employee worked from home. 1 day a month, the employee worked from the WeWork place or the co-working space. And what this did is it provided a regular service. It demonstrated that they were active. It showed there was a contract there for do that. So now the employee knew that if they couldn't get their job done for whatever services that were out in their home, the answer wouldn't be, I need to take the day off because I have no power. The answer is, I'm packing up the laptop and I'm over to work. I'm going to be down for 45 minutes until I get there. I'll be back up and running. So the company, not the individual, but the company had gone through the process of finding that alternate location to mitigate a lack of access to services at the employee's residence. Incredible solution, cost them a little bit of money, but it gained great assistance and redundancy. So with that, that's just a series of events that we just highlighted 3 possible events. A lot of it related to AI, a lot of it related to IT that have gone down, and the subsequent problems that it happens to businesses. So what we want to talk about now is, what can you actually do as a small business owner to mitigate against this type of event? What is within your power? So the first one is, for cybersecurity, we think about no multi-factor authentication or endpoint control. And that essentially means, how vulnerable is your network to be seized by a nefarious actor? Because they're constantly after specific actors, especially since the Iran conflict. We've seen a credible uptake in the attacks on critical infrastructure. We had a power outage here at the office, I think it was yesterday morning, and it went out for about 10 minutes. And the first thing that came to my head is when I saw the alert that it was a large portion of the city, I'm like, hey, cyber attack, taking down the network. So this is a real possibility. So how do you protect your network from attack? There are several simple things that you can do. Number one is, as we do here at Preparedness Labs Incorporated, we don't use QR codes ever for any reason. We don't use our phones or our equipment on it. We don't click on links, and we always examine, wash attachments through a security system that determines whether there's anything in there that shouldn't be, malware, viruses, etc. So we just don't do that. Second thing is everything that we have at the company is multi-factor authentication. All of our passwords are long, complex ones that are held in password managers. And we're very, very careful about who we connect with. We don't conduct any personal operations or communications on company work. It's totally segregated. They're two distinct, separate systems. Now, does that cost a little bit more in infrastructure? Yeah, exactly. It's one of our remote contractors. They have a second phone, because that second phone, there's a phone for this company, and there's their own personal cell phone. We provide that phone, but we also monitor it. If somebody was to use that for personal, non-emergency usage, that would be a violation of company policy. We have very strict policies about cyber, not because we're afraid, it's because we embrace cyber hygiene. And the concept of cyber hygiene is we have a very strong culture of understanding that it is up to us to protect our network. It is up to us to deny nefarious actors access to our network. So what we do is we push material out to companies through our programming. We push material out. We have a very specific system for companies to book through a third service provider a video call with us or access to us. We don't have a dashboard or system that people get a login ID and get to access. We believe that's too much of a security risk. So we push things out to our clients, or when we work with clients, we work on their systems, protecting our own internal systems. Now, some might think that's overkill. Some might think that's a weird interpretation of ISO 27001. Whatever your outlook would be, we have built a hygiene and a culture in this company that protecting our cyber is important. Second part is our operational supply chain failures. If you think about single points of failure, and we go back to the basic premise of asking that question to you as a small business owner, have you ever mapped out your end-to-end processes? Have you ever visualized what your company looks like? From the initial touch point with your customer to customer relations management after the delivery of goods and service, and absolutely every interaction and activity that happens internal or external to your company, and every cyber and operational support system that does that. If you visualize that, it sounds complex, but we have a very simple way of doing that. When you visualize it, you understand what it looks like. Because often what happens as small business owners, we're building this wonderful thing we have piece by piece. And we're not always thinking about, does the fifth iteration or the fifth activity we add to the business, does it work well with the first? Does it make sense? Because we don't pause to look at the entire system end to end. And this is what we recommend that you do. By doing that, what you're able to identify is single points of failure. If this activity was no longer available to us, and again, it's cause agnostic. We don't care why the power is out. It's irrelevant. We just care that we don't have access to power. If this point in our entire mapping fails, will it collapse the entire thing? If so, it's a single point of failure. Then we have to build a redundancy around it. So as you map and as you walk through the workflow with you and your team, you start to see where the vulnerabilities are and where you can build redundancies to help mitigate it. But if you never go through the process of mapping out, and this is free, it doesn't cost you anything. We use Lucid, for example, as a great online free program that to lay out the mapping if you want to do it that way. My preference is to do it on a whiteboard. I'm pointing to the whiteboard here in the office. I prefer mapping it out on whiteboard. You know, I've seen here in Ottawa where I live, there's a lot of co-working spaces. And so what we recommend to companies that we work with is if you work remote, bring everybody in for a day, rent a co-working office boardroom with a big whiteboard and spend a day with your people laying out the end-to-end process. This is what it looks like. Not what you think it is, but what it actually looks like. These are the actual processes we use in your company. I swear to you, the outcome would be incredible. Not only would you realize the complexity of what you've built, you will realize the number of single points of failure, and you'll be able to zero in. That's a vulnerability. If that occurs, we are in big poo-poo, big caca. And so we need to do something to move a redundancy, to build something around that to assist it. Redundancy also happens in your suppliers. Now, it depends on what you make. It depends on what service you provide. You may not have the ability to have alternate suppliers because of some part of intellectual property or some other rule. But understand a single point of failure could be, I get widgets from this person. Small businesses that go out of business, they don't give you notice. They don't tell you, hey guys, in about 30 days I'm going to run out of cash, so I'm going to collapse here. They're going to keep going until the very day they're forced to shut down. So your supplier could potentially disappear tomorrow. Every one of your suppliers could potentially disappear tomorrow. And you have to ask the question, what does my world look like when that supplier disappears? And then think through that strategy. Again, it's free of charge. It just takes some investment in time. And then some of your strategic risk domain. This is one that a lot of people don't think about. People think about, rightly so, their cyber and their operational. We call it your home game, to think of a sports analogy. You have to lock those down and you have to have them robust. But then when we think about strategic, think about AI adoption. How many companies now are bringing in all kinds of AI service providers, all kinds of AI systems, like if you use Make or Napier, Make.com or Napier or N8N products to put systems in place where you have automated processes run by AI. Who's watching that? What human governance have you left to overwatch that? There is a tendency, not everybody's doing it, but there's a tendency to see that it can be done by AI, but nobody's asking whether it should be done by AI. Or if we do it with the leveraging AI, where's the human oversight? For example, I use a program to cut clips from this YouTube. It's an AI program. It's getting better. Let's say 80% of the clips they produce are okay to put up onto my platform. 20% are not. If I set it up in a automated program, I could have it auto-populating. I could have it as soon as I upload to YouTube. The second it realizes something in YouTube, it queues it, it downloads it, it cuts the clips, it adds all the details to it, and it uploads it to my 5 socials. And I don't even have to do a thing. The problem is if there's no AI governance on that, if there's no human governance on that, then things get slipped through. Wording may be poor. The clip may not be on brand. And now you're running backwards because now we've just caused the biggest problem all of us have in the online sphere is reputational risk, right? I put a phrase up there. And for example, one of them said, cyber is the new black. Well, guess what? That's not an appropriate term. It's not on brand with us. And there's a lot of people on the internet that would find that offensive, right? If I didn't have a break point, a stop point in my AI management where I went in and verified what it was doing before it went out to the public, now I have a reputational problem because my inbox is full of people calling me an idiot and a number of other names. And yes, I've been called every name you could imagine. And now I'm running and I'm wasting valuable business time trying to save my company's reputation because I chose not to put any oversight on the AI. That's a fault that I created and it's not adopting AI that's the problem. Not at all. It's a great time saver, and it can let you do some pretty amazing things as a solo entrepreneur or as a small, medium business. But if you don't stay present in the system and have a human-based verification, now you've got a problem. Now you're accepting a higher degree of strategic risk because that could affect your position in the marketplace, but reputational risk. And we've all seen cancel culture, right? We've all seen cancel culture. If that comes for your business at some time, at some weight and leverage, that is a catastrophic life event for a small and medium business owner that relies on reputation, Trustpilot, or whatever it may be to get their work done. Absolutely catastrophic. So what we're trying to say, what we're using here, and what we'd like you to take away from this episode is access to intelligence to what happened to other small and medium businesses over a series of risk domains in a past period of time, getting that information delivered to you with an analysis of what did, what happened, what went wrong, and what could have been done to mitigate the results. Because remember, we can't prevent an event from occurring other than just closing the business, but we can mitigate the likelihood and the level of harm that that event causes. If we look at what happened to other people and we look at what the damage was, we can use that to inform our systems and continually be up to date to what is going on. This isn't a consultant one and done offer. Not at all. Because consultants will come in, they'll get you absolutely right up to the top level of service now, and then they'll go away. They'll offer you a retainer, $5,000 a year. Call me up, I'll come in and fix stuff for you. Or you can get a part of a system that offers you the regular flow. And that's what we do here at Preparedness Labs Incorporated. We provide that type of service where we deliver this risk intelligence and analysis to your inbox every 72 hours. We protect your business. We help protect your business against business disruptions and keep your operations running when the world goes crazy. Drop over to our website, www.preparednesslabs.ca. The link is down in the notes, and the program is right there. If you have any questions, drop us a line on the contact form. Thank you very much for joining us on this YouTube. And I just want to say a bit at the end for those that are still here. Number one, I appreciate you being here. This is free-flowing content. What we do here and what I believe is appropriate is I don't have a team that's cutting this. AI is not cutting this in one long form. This is me thinking about a subject. This is me telling you what I believe. And hopefully that provides you a level of trust that it's not a whole series of 10-second clips that are very so tightly linked together that you don't quite see where it jumps. No, when we take a break between segments like I need a drink or something like that, you'll see the traditional fold over screen. And I do that intentionally because what I want to do is demonstrate to you that this is real, this is authentic, this is my thoughts, this is my ideas, and our services that we provide you here through Mastering Risk and supported by our company, Preparedness Labs Incorporated, because we believe that your small and medium business can succeed and actually gain market share in these times of uncertainty and chaos. And it's just access to a level of knowledge and the implementation of a business disruption protection system. Thanks for joining us this week. We appreciate your being here. Drop all of your comments down below, all of your feedback to Jeff at preparednesslabs.ca. Take care and stay safe.